You're listening to The White Rabbit, conversations on the art of presenting in a rather noisy world. Your hosts are Matt Krause and Alper Rosanes. Matt helps leaders of international companies speak, write, and present with confidence. Alper is a communications trainer and a startup investor with a diverse portfolio of companies in Barcelona. If you like this podcast, please share it with friends and colleagues. Now, on to Matt and Alper for today's conversation.
So, Alper, the other day, you were on a LinkedIn Live event. You were guesting on someone's LinkedIn Live event.
Yes.
And the host was digging into or asking you to dig into the inner drive behind what you do. And part of it was from the tactical execution standpoint of giving a good presentation. And part of it was from the deeper perspective of your inner emotions or your inner drive or your inner motivation for doing what you want to do.
Mm-hmm.
So tell me more about this event.
Well, one of the first questions I received was why I believed presentations or communication in general, or being a good communicator in general, was important in the workplace.
Sure.
And we talked about, I mentioned this quote, which is usually associated to Rumi and in Turkish it's something like, independent, regardless of how much you know, what you can convey is limited to the understanding of your audience.
Okay.
And that is something that I love because
wait. Back up a second. Say that again. That was a great quote.
I don't want to slaughter the phrase because I don't know the original in English, but in Turkish it's like, regardless of how much you know, what you convey, what you can convey is limited by your audience's understanding.
Ooh, I love it. Okay. So tell me more.
So I think this puts a tremendous amount of responsibility on the person making the speech, doing the communication, or even delivering the presentation. And the responsibility is, this is not just an event where I'm going to get up and speak and everybody understands whatever they understand and let it be that. No, I think this puts a bigger duty on the speaker to make sure that what he or she is talking about will be heard and will be understood by the audience. So it's not the responsibility of the people listening to understand, it's the responsibility of the speaker to make sure that the channel of communication is clear enough, clutter-free enough for the audience to be able to understand him or her. And it all started with that. And then we talked about, but why is this important in the workplace? And I told him that, look, who are the people we are communicating in our lives? We are communicating with our partners, we are communicating with our friends, family members, and also we are communicating with people in the workplace, not only our colleagues, but also other critical people who have decision-making power on whether we advance in our careers or not, right?
Okay, yeah.
And I believe that a critical presentation that can determine the outcome of your professional path, I don't think it's a question of if, I think it's a question of when. So when that moment comes and you find yourself in front of a critical person, a decision maker who has the power on your future, let's say, at least in that company, of course, not in your whole life, but at least in that company, what are some of the criteria he or she is going to use to evaluate whether you're fit for the promotion? I think they will look at your performance, of course, your potential, maybe your leadership skills, maybe your compatibility with the bigger goals that the organization has, your reliability, human relations, etc., etc. At first glance, maybe none of them seems connected to the communication skills.
Okay.
But I believe that when the time comes, the way you speak, the way you communicate, even the way you deliver a presentation will help the other person to determine how to position you based on these parameters. So the way you express yourself is going to be the tool, let's say, that will help the other person to answer these questions on his or her mind, whether this person is fit for promotion or not.
Sure.
So that was the practical or the more everyday part of why I believe this skill of good communication is
Mhm.
important in our lives.
Before we go on, let me just stop you there for a second. Um, One thing that occurs to me when you mentioned the Rumi quote earlier. What was it? Something to the effect of the your ability to get someone to come along with you, or your ability to persuade someone, your ability to persuade an audience member depends more than you. It depends on the thinking of that audience member. Was that a fairly accurate way to paraphrase it?
I think it will be more fair to say, let's say I have 10 units of knowledge and I'm
Mhm.
conveying that. But at
Okay.
the end of my speech, presentation, communication, whatever, my audience understands only 2 units,
Mhm.
which
Okay.
that means at the end, I only delivered 2 units. So it
Okay.
doesn't matter that I knew I had knowledge of 10 units. Well,
Uh-huh.
I was able to convey only 2 units.
Okay. I guess I misunderstood the quote that you paraphrased there, the quote that you read, because when I heard that Rumi quote, I thought the presentation person, the presentation giver, is more than a presenter. The presenter is basically a teacher because if you have a bunch of knowledge, but you are not able to teach that knowledge to the people in your audience, if you're not able to teach your vision to the audience, then you're not a good presenter.
Exactly.
So in that case, the presenter is actually more of a teacher than the presenter because when people think of presenting, they worry about where are my hands, how is my eye contact, am I sweating or not? These are the things that people are worried about when they're presenting.
Mhm.
But when you are presenting, according to that Rumi quote, the real question is, are you teaching your audience what they need to know?
Yes. And
Did
in
I
the
did
corporate,
I hear that correctly?
yes. And in the corporate world, there may be situations in which just conveying the information is not the most important thing. Maybe the most important
Mm,
thing will be for that person to position you in his or
mhm.
her mind as a potential future candidate for promotion.
Okay.
So you don't have the luxury to say, well, I'm in teaching mode. I'm just going to talk about these. It's up to the people to understand how much they understand. No,
Mhm,
it's actually up to you as the
mhm.
presenter, as a speaker, to make sure that they get you fully
Okay.
because
True.
they have the decision
Mm.
power.
Yeah, yeah, I like it. And then, so that alone was pretty spiritual. I mean, we're talking about Rumi and stuff, but you mentioned that that was the tactical side of things. Did I hear you correctly?
While on the other hand, I have I have had a burning question on my mind for a very long time, and
Uh-huh.
it has got nothing to do with presentations or PowerPoint or anything.
Okay.
And the burning question was, why are we here? Like, why did we come to this life?
Uh-huh.
And over the course of my lifetime, I have had different feelings, sensations, but lately, the strongest one is actually we have one goal, and it is to serve other human beings, to
Uh-huh.
serve others. That's
Uh-huh.
simple as that.
Okay.
Okay, what do I do with that information? Well, you pick your way to serve. Since this is the ultimate goal, I mean, at least that's the feeling that I have, at least that's the sensation that I have. And if
Uh-huh.
if that is the case, then you need to pick your way to serve. And I believe that my way was destined to be through communication. And I would like to share with you, I don't know if we talked about this before, but whenever I hear someone delivering a speech on how to quit smoking and they say, I smoked for 20 years, or someone how to quit alcohol and they say, well, I was alcoholic, I was kind of envious about them.
Uh-huh.
Here is this
Sure.
person with this huge amount of experience, positive or negative,
Uh-huh.
huge amount of experience, and he or she is in a position to say, I was down. This is what I did. This is what I
Uh-huh.
can talk to you about. I was
Yeah.
always envious of those people.
Sure.
And I'm not a smoker.
Uh-huh.
I'm barely a social drinker, and
Uh-huh.
there wasn't many things in my life which I could tell people. You know what? I was down in the tubes. This is how I
Uh-huh.
got up, and this is what I can talk to you about. And then I realized, yes, there is actually something. I was a horrible communicator. I couldn't bring
Yeah.
two words together at the time.
Uh-huh.
And then I worked on it and I made some progress. And this is
Uh-huh.
what I can talk about.
Uh-huh.
And over the course of the past 10 plus years, it has worked pretty well. So I realized this is a clear indication that this is my way to serve.
Uh-huh.
And seeing other people whose lives I'm able to touch and seeing the differences our collaboration can make in their own lives in the way that they can reach their own goals to make them happier, to make them more fulfilled,
Mhm.
both in their professional lives and in their personal lives. It is something that clearly answers the question. By the way, full disclosure, the answer to this question can change over time because I didn't have this answer 5 years ago. Maybe in
Okay.
5 years I will have a different answer. I don't know. But at the
Yeah.
moment, it seems compatible with my own worldview in the way that we are here to serve. And this seems to be one of the tools I may have acquired through thick and thin, by the way. This is not something I was born with, and you know my background,
Uh-huh.
and it feels compatible with the worldview that I have at the moment. So the things that we talked about in the beginning, the practical side of being a good communicator and more the
Uh-huh.
spiritual side, seems to be coming together and answer the question why I do what I do.
Okay. And I have a question for you at this point.
Sure.
So you're talking about some pretty high level spiritual stuff. You're talking on the Maslow's pyramid. You're talking about some pretty high
Hmm.
level like self actualization stuff. Some pretty high level spiritual stuff. But you and I know that in the day to day trenches of, for example, the presentation training that we've done. In
Hmm.
the day to day trenches, there's a lot of, you go into do a presentation training, and there's a lot of people talking about the B key and cropping images and, where do I put my hands and stuff. So when you go into the day to day execution of your job as a trainer, when you go into that, and you're stuck down in the mud. You're stuck down in the trenches of answering these questions about beat keys and cropping images and where do I put my hands. And you're like, oh, well, yeah, but the reason that I'm in this business is high level spiritual. There's a huge difference there between the high level that you just talked about and the down in the mud stuff that you would experience on a daily basis. So there's a big difference there. Does this cause frustration for you in your daily work?
It doesn't actually, and it's a
Hmm.
very good question, which got me thinking for the past 30 seconds.
Okay.
It doesn't, because at any given moment, I feel I'm able to connect even the smallest detail
Hmm.
somehow to the big picture, as in, look, we are here to serve, we are here to make other people's lives better, more peaceful. And this presentation can be a tool o- on that path.
Hmm.
And on that path, if the B key, the mundane
Mm.
B key, actually
Okay.
helps me to
Mhm,
pause the presentation, to hide the slides, and make me facilitate me in connecting better with you,
mhm.
then I can see the line all the way connecting the mundane B key all the way to the big picture of how
Yeah.
am I going to make your
Ooh,
life better and
good point,
fulfill
good point.
my number one responsibility as having come to life as a human
Mhm.
being.
Okay.
So yes, you're absolutely right that maybe they look miles apart. Like,
Mhm.
how can I serve you to make your life better? Here is the beaky. While they may look miles apart, I think they're
Uh-huh.
they're inherently connected.
Interesting. Good perspective, good perspective. Okay, so we've got a wrap up for today. So on this general topic, the metaphysics of why Alper does what he does, Alper's inner motivation. Anything else that you would like to say?
Before we wrap up, I would like to, in a future episode, I would like to pick your brains as well, because from our
Ah,
previous conversations, you had used the word bringing people peace on a number of
uh-huh.
occasions, and
Yeah.
I would love to pick your brains on that too. And I think it would
Okay.
be deeply connected to what you do.
Okay. Excellent. So we'll wrap it up here for this week, and we'll put Matt's metaphysics on the board for a future episode. How's that?
Yep, let's do that.
Okay. Well, thank you very much, Alper. I'll talk to you later.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening to The White Rabbit with Matt Krause and Alper Rosanes. You can subscribe to the podcast on Spotify, iTunes, or through your favorite feed.